Inverness has always been a city defined by distance. Distance from the power of the Scottish Central Belt, distance from the glamour and money of the South, distance even from itself. For most of the 20th century, that division was embodied not in geography but in football, where two clubs stood on opposite sides of the River Ness, locked in rivalry. From that rivalry, there would emerge one of the most remarkable stories in Scottish football. Before Inverness Caledonian Thistle, there was Caledonian Football Club and Inverness Thistle. Founded in 1885, Caledonian FC, known as Cali, played at Telford Street Park, close to the docks and the industrial core of the city. Across town, Inverness Thistle, formed a year earlier in 1884, played at Kingsmills Park, representing a different Inverness. Both clubs were pillars of the Highland League. Their meetings were not just football matches, they were civic flashpoints. Families were divided and friendships strained. Yet for all their passion and success, both clubs faced the same limitation. They were locked out of the Scottish Football League. There was no promotion route, no matter how strong their team or loyal their support. Inverness, a city larger than many towns with league teams, remained excluded from the senior leagues. In 1994, the Scottish Football League was expanding. 2 new spots were to be made available. Why not Inverness? The answer was brutal in its simplicity, because Inverness was divided. The proposal surfaced quietly at first, spoken in hushed tones among officials rather than fans. A merger. One club, one stadium, one voice. It made perfect sense. A united Inverness club could apply for election to the Scottish Football League. It could represent the entire Highlands, not just one half of a divided city. But football is not built on logic alone. When rumours of a merger began to circulate, disbelief turned into outrage. Supporters felt betrayed, not by rivals, but by their own leaders. In 1994, despite fierce opposition, the unthinkable happened. Caledonian FC and Inverness Thistle merged, forming Caledonian Thistle Football Club. The compromises pleased no one. The name itself was a problem. Cali fans resented the inclusion of Thistle. Thistle fans were unhappy at Cali being mentioned first. The new club played at Cali's Telford Street, reinforcing Thistle supporters' sense of loss. Kingsmills Park was abandoned, its terraces destined for redevelopment. For many fans, this was not a birth, but a funeral. The newly formed club was elected to the Scottish Football League, along with fellow Highland League team Ross County, entering the 3rd Division for the 1994-95 season. The new kit colours combined Cali's blue and the red of Thistle. The early years were challenging. Long journeys south, hostile receptions from clubs who resented their inclusion. Supporters still divided, some refusing to accept the new identity. But football has a way of forging unity through shared experience. As Caledonian Thistle began to win, resentment softened, and promotions followed. The club rebranded as Inverness Caledonian Thistle. Crowds grew. Within 6 seasons, the club had climbed from the 3rd Division to the 1st Division. Inverness was no longer an experiment, it was a contender. On the 18th of February 2000, Inverness Caledonian Thistle arrived at Celtic Park for a Scottish Cup tie that was expected to be a routine home win. Celtic, giants of the Scottish game, underestimated their opponent. Inverness did not. Playing with fearless organisation and belief, Inverness stunned the crowd with a 3-1 victory. It was one of the greatest cup shocks in Scottish history. The newspaper headline the next day became immortal. Super Cali go ballistic, Celtic are atrocious. The phrase entered folklore. For Inverness, it was a moment of national recognition. A club born from resentment had announced itself to the country. The 2003-2004 season was to be a special one. A 2-0 victory over Airdrie United in the Scottish Challenge Cup final started things off. On the final day of the season, A 3-1 victory over St Johnstone clinched the First Division title. Just 10 years after formation, the club achieved the unimaginable: promotion to the Scottish Premier League. The journey from Highland League outcasts to top-flight contenders had been breathtakingly fast. Survival was the initial goal, but under managers such as John Robertson, Craig Brewster and Terry Butcher, Inverness became more than survivors. They were organised, resilient and capable of unsettling wealthier opponents. One of the pledges made to gain entry into the Scottish Football League was that they would move to a newly built ground. The Caledonian Stadium was built in 1996, part funded by the sale of both Caley's and Thistle's old grounds. The capacity was 5,000. When Inverness gained promotion to the Premier League, the new stadium did not meet SPL requirements, so they had to ground share with Aberdeen, over 100 miles away, for the first part of the season, while upgrade work was carried out. In the 2014-15 season, the club finished third in the Premier Division, their highest ever league position. A staggering achievement for a team that had not existed before the mid-1990s. For a moment, it felt as though Inverness had broken the ceiling that once confined it. Yet the defining moment of the club's history still lay ahead. May 30th, 2015. Inverness Caledonian Thistle faced Falkirk in the Scottish Cup final at Hampden Park. They had earned their place in the final by disposing of St Mirren, Partick Thistle, Raith Rovers, then coming from behind to beat Celtic 3-2 after extra time in the semi-final. Inverness opened the scoring when Marley Watkins scored after 38 minutes. After Inverness were reduced to 10 men when Carol Tremarco was sent off, Peter Grant equalised for Falkirk 10 minutes from time. The game looked like it was going to extra time, but with 86 minutes on the clock, James Vincent scored the winner. When the final whistle blew, Inverness Caledonian Thistle were Scottish Cup winners. For the Highlands, it was vindication. For supporters who had once opposed the merger, it was impossible to deny what the club had become. Inverness Caledonian Thistle had written itself into Scottish football history. Success, however, came at a cost. Financial strain followed years of competing at the top level. Relegation from the Premiership came in 2017. Attempts to bounce back fell short. Crowds dwindled. Budgets tightened. The club slipped further down the divisions, losing not just matches but stability. By the early 2020s, Inverness Caledonian Thistle were struggling to survive. In 2024, the club entered administration. The announcement sent shockwaves through the city. The club faced the real prospect of liquidation, total extinction. Supporters, once opposed to the merger, now rallied to save the institution it had created. Old rivalries seemed trivial in the face of losing everything. Players, staff and fans endured months of uncertainty. The future hung by a thread. Salvation came through a rescue effort led by local businessman Alan Savage, whose intervention prevented liquidation and guided the club out of administration. It was not a return to glory, but it was survival. Inverness Caledonian Thistle emerged battered, but alive. Entering administration meant the club incurred a 15-point penalty as punishment. The loss of points left Caley Thistle facing potential relegation from League One and a return to the bottom tier of league football. But the team managed to rise up the table to 7th place and 7 points clear of the relegation playoff spot. Inverness Caledonian Thistle is not just a football club. It is a living compromise between past and future, rivalry and unity, ambition and reality. Born from resentment, forged through struggle, elevated by belief, brought down by circumstance, saved by community. The ghosts of Caledonian and Thistle still linger in conversation and memory, but so too does pride. Pride in what Inverness achieved when it dared to stand together. Its story remains unfinished, not as a flaw, but as a reflection of the city it represents. Enduring, rebuilding, and still standing.